Getting a seat at the table continues to be a challenge for women in the workplace. Today, we will take a look at a unique and fun way women are learning vital skills by getting a seat at the table, the poker table. We'll learn how the game is helping women strengthen their strategic thinking, risk assessment, and decision making. Discover how you can turn poker prowess into professional advancement. Welcome to the Women's Leadership Today podcast, a feature of Women's Leadership Today. I'm your host, Michelle Myers. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Erin Lydon, president of Poker Power, an edtech company with a mission to teach 1 million women how to play the game of poker and the game of life. Erin is a thought leader and frequent speaker on gender equity, where she inspires audiences to take action and create change in their communities and organizations. I've asked Erin to join us today to talk about this very unique way of building key skills women need for career advancement. Erin, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Michelle. Delighted to be here.
Oh, appreciate it. And before we dive into Poker Power and its mission, can you tell us more about your own personal journey and how you came to be president of the organization?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I was not a poker player. And in fact, I had been surrounded by poker for most of my time when I was on Wall Street. I started working in a finance career in 1999, and I was surrounded by a lot of men and a lot of poker, is what I always say. But I never took my seat because I truly believe that there's this force field around the poker table, and it keeps women from sitting down and playing and competing. Now, I loved my job at JP Morgan. I was very, very happy there. But a couple of things happened that changed really the trajectory of my life. One is I had a child. I was late to having children, and this is still at a time in many investment banking firms where maternity and family and being, on a very hard driving career path really didn't go together. And I really struggled. I didn't have, internal resources. I didn't have external resources. And so I made a very difficult decision to pause my banking career. In doing so, I became a stay-at-home mom. And I'll be honest, that was harder than everything I'd been trying to do when I was in finance. But it was also something that I really wanted to do a good job at. And I did that for a number of years. And then I said, the kids are in school. I'd had a second daughter at that time, and I'm ready to do something else. And that something else was startups. And if you had asked me, when I was in business school and when I was at JP Morgan, will you be working in startups for the rest of your life? I would have said absolutely no. But here's what I didn't really know about my personality is I truly thrive in the chaos and the uncertainty and the unpredictability of a startup and the building of a startup. And so I've had opportunities now to work in 4 of them. Poker Power is the one that I think is closest to what I truly believe, my own personal mission, which is all around women's empowerment, but particularly around equal pay, career acceleration, and providing the leadership skills that women of all ages and all stages in life really need to reach whatever they consider success. My definition of success is not necessarily yours or someone else's, but I truly do believe that learning to think like a poker player is that secret sauce that so many of us have been missing.
Well, and I have to ask, how good of a poker player were you before you came on board Poker Power?
I honestly, I had never sat at the table, and people find
Really?
that hard to believe because I play a lot of poker now. And not only had I never sat, I actually had negative stereotypes about the game. I thought it was
Interesting.
booze and betting and boys clubs and smoky basements and all the places that I didn't see myself fitting. I also didn't really understand the complexity of the game, the strategy that is involved in the game. So I didn't value spending any of my personal time playing the game. So I really was, I was a blank slate. I learned how to play poker with the Poker Power curriculum. And I also, often say that for that first year, I didn't tell a lot of people that I didn't know how to play poker because I felt like I should have come equipped with that, that imposter syndrome that so many of us have. What I realized is I was the target market for Poker Power. So much of our community is women who have never sat at the table and held the same stereotypes that I held of the game. And so by sharing my story, it became very relatable, and I made poker very welcoming and accessible. And if I can do it, you can do it too.
Well, and for our audience, can you tell us how Poker Power was started and its mission?
So our mission is to teach 1 million women plus, and our definition of plus is very broad. If you identify as a woman, non-binary, transgender, you are part of our community. And our mission is to teach 1 million individuals how to think and strategize and negotiate and take risk like a winning poker player. So it isn't about getting you into the casino. It isn't even about getting you into, your partner's home game in the basement. It's all about shifting your perspective and giving you a new framework on how to problem solve, how to get comfortable taking risk, and how to negotiate in the workplace and in your personal life. Poker Power initially started as an idea for teenagers. Our founder is Jenny Just, and it was actually her daughter who had played very poorly in a tennis match back when she was 14. So this is almost 4 years ago. And her daughter's dad walked through the kitchen and he said, Juliet should learn to play poker. Now, the reason he said that, the reason he made that connection is that Juliet was just hitting the ball. She wasn't playing strategically, and she wasn't trying to imagine what her opponent was doing against her. And it was that missing connection of when you are playing a game, there's always someone on the other side. And that game can certainly be tennis, it can be poker, it can be a business deal, it can be a client negotiation. We play games in our lives all the time. So when we started, we were teaching teenagers on the North Shore of Chicago. What happened very quickly is the pandemic. And I always now say that the pandemic was the perfect storm for Poker Power, because through the pandemic, we had to shift who the audience was. As you may recall, teenagers across America and the world were overwhelmed, inundated, and really struggling. And so spending another hour of their day on a Zoom screen learning poker didn't really work for them at that time. But guess who was wanting people to turn on their screens and start to interact? Those were our corporate partners. And so we very quickly pivoted to building out a virtual curriculum. It's 12 lessons, each of them is 1 hour. And we rolled it out as professional development, leadership development, mentee-mentor programming. And we primarily worked with large corporates who were trying to get colleagues and team members to turn on their cameras and interact. Poker is a really great way to interact with your colleagues. It's fun, it's social, it's strategic, so you are learning. And it's something that most people haven't done a lot of, so it's a very equal playing field. And I think that's an important component when you start to play poker, is it's a meritocracy. Doesn't matter where you went to school, doesn't matter your title, doesn't matter your age, your race, any of those things that so often segregate us from having the full power that we would like. They don't happen at the poker table in the beginning because you all don't know what you're doing. And there's some really interesting characteristics that come out at the poker table. So there's no guarantee that the CEO is going to beat the intern. And often it can be the opposite. And so we rolled out corporate programming across America. We quickly scaled to 40 countries by the end of 2022. And we have over 200 corporate partners. So we have very much built a B2B business where we are delivering the leadership skills and the training skills for women plus in the workforce.
Well, I like that idea that it's putting everyone on an even playing field, almost literally, right? The same seats at the table. And you've talked about some of the skills that translate from the poker table to, let's say, the boardroom table. But what are some of the other key skills that women develop either deliberately or just as they're learning poker that do translate to the workplace?
Yeah, so first and foremost, it's confidence. And I know that can be a word that people say, I have confidence. I know I don't need to gain confidence. But what we see with poker is because so few women in particular have ever played, as they sit down at the table, and there's this time that comes, it's usually in the first 10 or 15 minutes, where it's your turn and your decision is either you're going to shove all your chips into the middle of the table, which means you're putting everything at risk, or you're going to do a more passive move. Maybe you're going to call or you might fold. When the player decides to shove, all those chips go to the center of the table. You don't know the outcome until the cards are turned face up. And when you win, there is this rush of adrenaline, this rush of, oh my gosh, I made a decision. It was the right decision and I won. And you scoop back all of those colorful chips.
Yeah.
As I describe that to you right now, it doesn't sound that remarkable. But when you are physically sitting at the table and you experiencing that for the first time, it is validation of all the effort that you put into playing this game. Because poker is complex. There's many decision points within a poker game where you're either going to win or you're going to fail. And winning poker players actually fail more than they do win. Just when they win really big. And so that's the first step, is building that confidence, is you can do this. You can see yourself succeeding in an environment at a table where you never had a seat. The second thing that typically happens next is around risk assessment, because every hand you play in poker is a risk decision. Because again, you have your two private hole cards, so you know what those are, but nobody else does. And you have up to 5 cards that come out in the center of the table that everyone plays with. And it's a matching game. You're trying to make the best 5-card combination with your cards and what's out on the table. Now, what you don't know is you don't know what anyone else is holding. You also are being very observant to the other players at the table. Poker is played with humans, and humans are erratic. And we make decisions, including bluffing, that are unpredictable. And that is the real world. That is a negotiation with a client. That is going in and talking to your manager, your boss about a raise or a promotion. You've got the whole cards. You know what you have, but you have to think about, what do they have? What cards could they be playing? And it's that shifting of perspective from me to everyone else at the table that really helps with the analysis and getting comfortable with risk in poker. And we find that that's a skill that most women haven't practiced. They haven't been in an environment where they could practice that in a safe space. And that's one of the things that we have created, is getting really comfortable making risk assessment decisions. And you get immediate feedback. You are either going to win the pot or you're going to lose. And it's in that losing that is really where the valuable lessons come.
Oh, absolutely. But I do really like this idea that you are learning risk assessment, but still in a fairly safe environment, right? And then the opportunity to learn how to read people that interact. I feel like, especially today, that's an opportunity that we have less and less of.
One of the things with reading people, because that comes up a lot with poker, is reading the
Yeah.
tells.
Yeah.
And oftentimes women will say to me, I don't have a poker face. And I'll say, well, why are you saying that? And they say, well, everything shows in my face. I said, that is your poker face. You can use that strategically at a poker table, in a meeting, in a negotiation. Have your face show emotion. A poker face doesn't just mean there's, a flat face and there's no expression. A poker face is just not creating patterns that can be recognizable and then used against you in a game. And so I often say to women, it's okay for you to smile. Just don't smile every time you get pocket aces. It's okay for you to laugh at the table. Just don't laugh every time you're nervous because you have a terrible hand. So you just have to use your natural body movements and expressions to your advantage. And I think that's also, a skill that women need to have in the boardroom and everything leading up to the boardroom, is, how am I being perceived? What do people think? How strong do people think I am? And how strong am I really? Bluffing is such an important part of poker. And again, that's one of the skills that women often say, I don't want to lie. I'm not comfortable lying. And bluffing isn't lying. Bluffing is withholding information. And if you start to think about bluffing that way, it's an incredibly powerful tool to have. You do not need to share everything that you know or everything that you have in every interaction. You can actually hold it back and you can bluff and see where you land in that hand.
Yeah, and that definitely translates directly to the workplace, especially negotiation, doesn't it?
Yep.
What have you personally learned from playing poker?
I've learned everything. I've been so surprised how much I've had to learn, because I've been a leader for a very long time, and I've definitely become a better leader through playing poker. But one of the key skills, because I'm very comfortable taking risk, and I have my whole life. I used to race cars, and I do dangerous things pretty willingly. I'm also quite confident. I just came out of the womb with a lot of confidence, and I think that's been a real strength. But one of the things I haven't been good at, and I am getting better at through playing poker, is what I call the power of the pause. And the power of the pause in a poker game means that you are checking. And when you check in poker, you actually tap the table or you say the word check. And it means you're passing the action, the play action, to the next player. And you're observing what they're going to do next. And so in poker, you use your checking move very strategically to gain more information. And prior to learning to play poker, I was much more forthcoming. I was one of those people who wanted to get all my points out as quickly as I could.
Hmm.
And if you were my boss and you asked me for something, I would drop everything and immediately get it done. I don't do that anymore because the power of the pause gives you permission to pause, observe, analyze, and make a decision. And it isn't just time and space, it's actually stepping back and saying, how am I going to prioritize everything that I am doing? Where does this request fall in all of the deliverables I need to do? So I find it incredibly powerful to give myself permission to not respond ASAP. And I've learned that through poker. And being able to check in poker can be a really advantageous move.
And what do you think are some of the biggest hurdles that women face in getting into the game? And in what ways might this model the workplace?
Yeah. So if you don't learn to play poker from a grandma or an uncle, or maybe when you're at university, you've really missed the opportunity to learn how to play. Very, very few women are going to walk through a casino, walk by the poker room. They're usually not on the main floor. They're always kind of hidden away, so they don't feel very welcoming. They're not going to walk into that space and sit down and start playing a game. They don't know the jargon. They don't know the rules. They
Mm,
don't know the mechanics and the proper interactions. And women, by and large, like to feel very prepared. We don't like to put ourselves into situations
yeah.
where we don't feel like we have most of the answers, if not all the answers. And that's not poker. I think that feeling of, I don't belong here, I don't know what I'm doing here, I'm not even going to break through that force field that surrounds the poker table. That's exactly what's holding back some women in the workplace. Let's just take math. Let's take, the finance side of a business, because that's a part of the business that I'm very comfortable in,
Mhm.
but I know that's unusual. I know a lot of women are not comfortable with the P&L. They're not comfortable with the jargon that goes around running the actual financials of a business. That's if you are turning away when it comes to the budget part or the math part of your business, you are missing out on an opportunity to, one, be better informed people insert themselves into conversations. People in conversations start to hear information that is really valuable. And once you're in the flow of important information, other people are thinking about you. They're thinking about you when opportunities happen. They're thinking about you when there's a promotion. They're thinking about you when there's a stretch assignment. All of that you can roll back and say, I'm there because I didn't hold myself back. I said yes instead of saying no. And that is my life motto, which is I say yes to everything, and especially the things I don't know how to do. And it's really important because I find myself over my head a lot. I didn't know how to play poker, and I run a poker company. Uh, when I went into finance and business school, I had been in nonprofit prior to that. Just
Mm.
like 180 throughout my whole life is the number of turns that I have made. But it is through saying that yes and having the confidence and the self-awareness and self-belief that I truly think that all of us can open up new opportunities.
Yeah, we do miss out on so many opportunities, like you said, when we don't say yes, right? And do you find the competitive nature of poker causes some women to maybe shy away from the game?
Absolutely. Now, if you're playing with us, there is no real money transacting, so you don't have your paycheck is not at risk, but your
Sure.
ego is at risk for sure. And playing for a stack of chips and a leaderboard is really important. Many people have not had competitive experiences in their lives. They weren't on competitive sport teams. They weren't on, let's say, a chess team. Feeling that pressure of performance is difficult. It's an uncomfortable feeling, and one that, as you know, we get older and older in our lives, we just kind of X all the things we don't like how they feel when we do them, and we don't do them again. I very much think that competition at a poker table is that. And in poker, most of your other fellow players will be men. If you look at the industry of poker, 95% of the professional players are men. So if in fact you find yourself, sitting at a table, you're probably going to be, 1 or 2 women and 8 men at that table. That power dynamic is really unbalanced. It can cause all sorts of things that happen in the gaming world, and it's not just poker. I was in esports prior to being at Poker Power, and certainly saw it there. Is that there is harassment, there is belittling, there is making you feel inferior. There is shaming when you make a mistake. And when you're a beginner player, you make a lot of mistakes in poker. All of those things also happen in the workplace, and particularly in male-dominated spaces where you are the only. And what we are trying to do, one of the many things we do at Poker Power, is help you not be afraid of being the only. So be the only, and then reach behind you and bring another one with you. And that
Oh,
is
I like
truly
that.
how we're going to start to shift this imbalance of power that we see in the workplace.
No, I really like that. Like you said, let's reach back and help the next woman come forward. It's so important that we support each other, especially in some industries where we might be the only one at that table, so to speak. And Erin, do you have many opportunities to hear from uh, the women that have, taken your courses, used your app, and it's made transformations in how they feel about themselves or how they perform in the workplace?
Yeah, and that's what's wonderful about running a community of Women Plus is that we share in a really positive
Yeah.
way. We like to share our experiences, and whether we're doing it, face to face at a table, we're doing it in our app. Our app is called Poker Power Play, and it's really the hub of our community. You can play in there, you can learn in there, and you can practice in there, and that's important. That practice piece is really important to building the competence and the confidence. But often what we will hear is in going through our lessons, women are developing the ability to take risk in a way that they hadn't previously. So that could be going for that promotion. You know you're capable, you know you deserve it, but you've been holding yourself back. Putting yourself out there in a poker game, game after game after game, starts to build that muscle memory of I can get comfortable taking risk.
Mm.
And that's really critical for a lot of the opportunities that you might be missing in the workplace is truly because you're not willing to put yourself at risk. And what I say, I did a TEDx on equal pay. And one of the
Mm.
things I said in that is that if you don't ask, you certainly aren't going to receive. But even if you hear no, and I think no is important right now, given the economic conditions of our country and our workplaces, a lot of us are asking for things that we're going to hear no. And I always say that no doesn't mean never. It just means not right now. And if
Mm.
you can go into asking for something that you want, knowing that the worst possible thing that's going to happen is no,
Yeah.
you're okay because it's just not right now. Come back in 6 months, ask me what I need to do better or differently, come back in a year. You can always re-ask the question. And that's poker because when you play poker, it's hand after hand after hand. Most of them you're losing. So you can't get up from the table. You got to keep playing. You've got this big stack of chips you want to play with. I think it really is through the practicing of hearing no, losing the game, not getting the promotion, that we start to get a bit better at doing the ask. And hopefully, one of those times the answer is yes. It really needs to get to yes.
Well, and Erin, can you share with us how someone can learn with Poker Power?
Yeah. So the quickest way, the way you can do today is install Poker Power Play onto your device. It's a mobile device, so a tablet or a phone. And the first thing you should do is go to the Learn modules. There are 14 of them. They each take about 5 minutes, and it will give you all the gameplay basics. So if you complete all 14, hopefully you score, 95 or better on those quizzes at the end. You will know the basics of the game. You'll know the jargon, you'll know the rules, and you'll have some key tips and tricks on how to play the game. The next step is you start to play against our bots. So in a different section in the
Okay.
app, you can practice against a number of bots. That's really, really helpful because you can play wildly. You can play really conservatively and passively. You can try out different gameplay strategies, and no one's recording it. No one's paying attention to you. So it's a really safe place to do that. And then the third step is come to class. So we offer virtual classes with live teachers several times a week for our community. And you can start with lesson 1 and go all the way through lesson 12. And then the fourth way is that we play games in our app every day. And again, it is a controlled space. It's very safe to play. There's teachers in all of our games who are observing and chatting. So you're going to have a really positive gameplay experience. And it is through that practicing and the repetition of play that your gameplay will improve.
Well, and I'll share, Erin, that I did download the app, and it's a great app, and it's fun. It's really fun. It's been years since I've personally played poker. I used to, younger days, but it's been a long time, and I certainly forgot most of the rules. So it's a great fun app to use. So I've been enjoying it.
Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that. We are finding lots of people who are installing it and getting, their first taste of poker. So it's great.
Definitely fun. Well, Erin, thank you again for joining us today. I really appreciate what your organization is doing for women, and in a way that is both engaging and accessible. And I definitely encourage our listeners to check out pokerpower.com and the app and start playing today.
Thank you so much. In poker, we say shuffle up and deal. So that is how I will close today.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you. Well, I'd also like to say thank you to our listeners for joining us. We release 2 episodes a month available to watch on YouTube, and you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite streaming service. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. The Women's Leadership Today podcast is just one feature of the Women's Leadership Today community. We empower women to advance in their career through targeted professional development learning experiences and resources, such as live and on-demand courses, customized training solutions, up-to-date publications, and more. Visit womensleadershiptoday.com to join our community and take your career to the next level. Together, we can empower women everywhere to lead, innovate, and inspire change.